طلعت الصورة عندكم؟ الو
بعدها دكتور ما اجت.
ما اجتي؟
بعدها لا.
اوكي تحملت؟
لا دكتور بعدها ما هي.
علي الو
بلي دكتور لحد الان ما طلعت الشاشة.
وش عجب شو تأخرت؟
ما اعرف دكتور، الغيها
دكتور ما
وسوي مرة
اتوقع
ثانية.
قاعد تبث.
ها
ما اتوقع قاعد تبث الشاشة دكتور.
هذا اشوف والله خل اوجع.
انه علامة البث ما قاعد يطلع عنه. هسه طلع دكتور.
اوكي خل احمل هذا. اوكي
اوكي دكتور واضحة.
بلي تمام دكتور.
واضحة؟
ايه دكتور.
اوكي انا اعتقد انتم تعبانين جدا، لان دا اشوف تعليقات بعض الطلاب انه انتم تعبانين صار لكم 3 ساعات، فراح اكون يعني جهد الامكان I will give the lecture brief very brief لانه اشعر بكم تعبانين. ولو شفت اكو بعض التعليقات مال الطلاب يعني تخلو من المهنيه. Okay. My lecture about introductions of just simple introduction on the respiratory system. Really, before I start my lecture, I want to express my happiness and my gladness to be with you for online lecturing, and I hope the best and the good interest for all of you. Thank you. Okay, let me start. The aim of our lecture today, my lecture, is just to inform you about the structure and function of the respiratory system, just to short recallings the notes on gases physics. You got a lot of physics bases in the secondary school, and just we give you short notes about just to recall and remember these physics rules. And then we will you have to know something about applied these physics rules in the physiology of respiratory system. Okay, the function of the respiratory system serves to ensure the giving oxygen to our body, and to dispose the carbon monoxides from our body. These are the major functions, but the minor functions involving these, which are just act as a backup for volume supply in case of acute reduction in the volume of the blood, and act as filtration stations for microparticles present in the circulations, and some source of hormonal activations of angiotensinogen. Okay, let me to talk about exchange and transports. The process of getting air from atmosphere to the lung, these called ventilations, and the process of gas exchange between in the lungs between atmospheric air and the blood gas it's called external respiration. When the blood getting oxygen and disposed its CO2, these oxygenated blood need to deliver to the peripheral tissue. Which organ deliver these oxygenated blood to the tissues is the pumping hearts, which pump blood, making circulations, and by circulations occur delivering of the oxygenated blood to the tissues. So, to perform good oxygenations of tissues, we need two organs function properly, the heart and lung. In addition to that, we need good hemoglobin, rich amount of hemoglobin. So we need a proper and good quality of blood. Okay, let me to talk about the physics of gases. The physiology will be easy if you understand the physics. So I will talk about atmospheric pressure. You know what is the atmospheric pressure? You know our globes. Our globes is surrounded by atmospheric air, ocean of air, as you see here. About the air is 700 kilometers. These have different layers. These are, as you see, this the most nearest layer to our air is troposphere. Anyhow, this is, if you're interested, you can go further in the source. But you see, these air from this distance had a weight. this weight of column of air exerted on the points of area in the air, these called atmospheric pressures. So atmospheric pressure is the force per unit area exerted against surface by the weight of air above the surface in the Earth atmosphere. So the pressure here equal to force per unit of area. Usually use pressure here. We use 1 Newton on square meter. It equal to 1 Pascal. Because the Pascal, and this Pascal usually used by international system of units. This Pascal is very small units. So usually you use kilopascal, which is equal to 1,000 Pascal. So in our lecture, we will use almost is the kilopascal. Never use Pascal, it is very small. The pressure can also expressed by other system, not only by international system, can be expressed on the, I will say on the millimeter mercury. 1 kilopascal equal to 7.5 millimeter mercury. So, as a whole, the atmospheric pressure equal 1 standard atmosphere equal to 760 millimeter, and this equal to 100 kilopascal. And then atmospheric pressure equal to 100 kilopascal, which is equal to 760 millimeter mercury, which equal to 1 standard atmosphere. If you want, I gave to you here, I'm giving you universal resource locators, URL of websites. These are, it's very nice YouTube explain what is the atmospheric pressure. If you have interest, you can go there. Now I will talk about kinetic theory of gases. You know, if we confine a gas in space, in particular limit of containers, these gas had particles. These particles moving inside the container and will just affect the wall of the container. This picking of the wall of, or hitting of the wall of container called collisions, collisions of wall by these particles. This will initiate the pressure. So because of continuous movements and collisions of these particles, it will lead to formations and initiations of pressure. So there are 2 laws you have to know it. Boyles Law. Boyles Law, he said the pressure usually inversely related or inversely proportionate to the volume. If the volume of air is increased or gas increased, the pressure, طبعا this is limited, يعني limited gas. Just confined to the space. Space confined with the gas volume. If the volume of this limited gas or confined gas is become high, the pressure will be low. So there are inverse relations between the gas volume and the pressure. Another law, which is Charles' law, he said that the temperature of the gas is correctly proportionate to the pressure. And if the temperature of the gas is increased, this will lead to an increased movement and collisions of particles inside the gas content, and this will increase the pressure. So increase the temperature of limited volume of the gas, this will lead to increase the pressure. Increase temperature, increase the pressure. So the temperature is correctly proportionate to the pressure. So if we collect these two laws, Boyles Law and Charles' Law, we will go the universal gas law. Universal gas law stated that the pressure is inversely proportionate to the volume and correctly proportionate to the temperature. That is all. These are universal gas law. Okay. Imagine we have a gas in the specific container. This gas, it will exert a pressure, and this pressure will call total pressure of that gas. If we have two gases in the same pressure, same volume, but composed of two gases, these two gases, each of them will exert a pressure. This pressure which exerted by a particular gas, we call it partial pressure of that gas. As you see here, this container contains two gases, gas A and gas B. The total pressure was collection of gas A and gas B. But if we want to estimate the partial pressure of gas A, it will equal to total pressure and 2, because there are two equal components of gases compose this mixture of gas. So we got what is called, if we had mixture of gases, each gas will form its particular pressure, and this pressure called partial pressure of that gas. And this partial pressure of each gas usually correlated to the volume fractions of gas in the mixture. Okay. If you hear Dalton's law state that the partial pressure of each gas in the gas mixture is the pressure of that gas, that this gas would be exerted if it is occupied the total volume of the mixture in the absence of other components. It means that if these containers, which contain A and B, if I remove B, the only gas A would stay, and I should not replace the volume by other gas. So the partial pressure will become total pressure. Yani here is as example, if the pressure is 1, if I remove gas, the partial pressure of gas A is 0.5, and partial pressure of gas B is 0.5. If I remove gas B, the total pressure will become 0.5. Yani total pressure, in case I remove the gas B, the gas A will express the total pressure of the gas B. These as Dalton law state that. So in the lung, okay, I try to express these in the lung gases. If you see in the lung, in our lung, you see a mixture of gases. This mixture of gas contain oxygen, CO2, nitrogen, and water vapor. Or each one of these components has its partial pressure. Okay? So these will giving the power of diffusion according to the partial pressure. يعني each pressure, I will explain. In respiratory physiology, we deal with a mixture of gases, mainly oxygen, nitrogen, and CO2. The rate of diffusion of these gases is directly proportionate to the pressure caused by that gas alone, which is called partial pressure. So, in the lungs, we had oxygen, CO2, nitrogen, and this will diffuse across the basement membrane to the blood. The power of diffusion of each gas usually determined by the partial pressure of each gas in the lung tissues. So the concept you see, consider air, which has approximately normal air had normal air in our atmosphere usually had 79% nitrogen and 21% oxygen. So the total pressure of this mixture at sea level is 100 kilopascals. I will use 100 just for explanations. Therefore, partial pressure of oxygen in this case, it will be 21%, which equal to 160 millimeters, and partial pressure of nitrogen will equal to 600 millimeters of mercury, and this equal to 80 kilopascals. Water vapor, just let me to explain this. When gas usually at sea or at rivers or at oceans, even in our bodies, usually the gas come in contact with the air. These are interface between gas and water. Usually the water develop a process of evaporation. Evaporations mean the water particles will escape from liquid state going to the gaseous states. These are evaporation. The process of evaporations lead to forming here water vapor. The water vapor is usually present in our air, which is coming from oceans, from rivers, from any waters in the air. These lead to formations of water vapor. The water vapor, when it's coming from liquid to the gaseous states, usually is reach to the states in when the outcome of the particles from water to gas and the income of particles from gas to the water become equal. These equal status of outgoing and incomings of water particles called saturated water vapor. Usually, saturated water vapor pressure usually is equal to 6.5 kilopascals. Okay, this. What about the evaporations? I will go further. These things which I explain it. By the way, the only factors which determine the evaporation pressure, the vapor pressure, is the temperature. In high temperature, the water vapor will be increased. In low pressure and low temperature, the water vapor will be decreased. So if you look to here, water vapor pressure at 0 degrees centigrade is 5 millimeter mercury, while water vapor pressure, اللي هو partial pressure, at 100 degrees centigrade is 760. يعني بشي حالة إذا صار 100 water vapor معناها ماكو أكسجين and we will got no enough oxygen. At 37 degrees centigrade, here, look here. You see, water vapor pressure is 47 millimeters mercury, about 6 point. This is the standard. This explains what happened when we are going in the summer season to the cities on the sea, just like Istanbul or other Arabian Gulf cities. When the humidity there is very high, we will feel just difficulty in breathing. We feel just like we got unpleasant sensation of breathing. So these are because of increasing level or concentrations of the water vapor in the environment. In comparison to the evaporations, there are gas particles going inside the water. These are dissolutions of air particle inside the waters. It's called dissolutions, and this dissolution will lead to what is called tensions or partial pressure of gas inside liquid. Okay, you see, if oxygen here in the air, these oxygen, there are oxygen particles continuously will go inside air, inside water, and by process of dissolutions, and this will initiate what is called partial oxygen pressure inside the liquid, or which is called tensions, just like oxygen tension in our blood, or oxygen, partial pressure of oxygen in our blood. These come because of the process of dissolutions. So gas tensions indicate how readily the gas will leave the liquid. How much gas in the liquid? When oxygen, as example, the partial pressure of gas in the solution is its partial pressure in the gas mixture. يعني it means when the oxygen partial pressure in the environment equal to 100, so 100 millimeter mercury, this oxygen, when the solution dissolved in the water, it will initiate partial pressure in the water in the same levels, 100 millimeter mercury. So the partial pressure in the gas is equal to the tension or partial pressure in the liquid. So the partial pressure of the gas in the liquid usually determined by the partial pressure of gas in the environment. That is very important to know. Henry's law states that the concentration of gas dissolved in the liquid is proportionate to its partial pressures in the gas. This is very important. So if the partial pressure of the oxygen in the air in my lung is high, the partial pressure inside my plasma, and it will become high. because it reflects the partial pressure in the air present in my lung. Okay. When the oxygen, as example, when the oxygen going to my blood, about 100 millimeter mercury, partial pressure about 100 millimeter mercury, which is normally 85 to 100 millimeter mercury. This partial pressure initiate what is called a power to push the oxygen to react with the hemoglobin. So, explain it out. Partial pressure is the amount of oxygen which is dissolved in the plasma. So, in a partial pressure doesn't express the content. While the contents, I mean the amount of oxygen present in the plasma plus the volume of oxygen stored in the hemoglobin. So oxygen particles which are combined with hemoglobin are not shared the forming of partial pressure. Only the particles which are dissolved in the plasma, only that particle sharing in the formations of partial pressure. So, on this base, the concepts of content and partial pressure is different. The concept of content of blood of oxygen is different from the concepts of concentrations of blood of oxygen in the blood. The concentration means partial pressure. It only refers to the dissolved volume of oxygen in the blood, while the contents of the blood, of oxygen of blood, it refers to the oxygen volume dissolved in the plasma plus the oxygen volume combined to the hemoglobin. Usually, the oxygen contents, not the partial pressure, depend on the solubility of the gas. Solubility of the gas, the solubility factor of each gas is different from others. As example, you see the oxygen, the solubility factor matter 0.2, while the carbon dioxide solubility factor matter 0.7, 0.02 oxygen, while this 0.5. You see, carbon dioxide solubility is 20 times higher than oxygen gas solubility. And this explains why the carbon dioxide can diffuse more easy than oxygen. Okay. Gas exchange in the lungs, I talk about this. You have to imagine at rest our body need about 12 millimole of oxygen per minute, and this amount of oxygen should be supplied to the 5 liters of blood. 5 liters of blood, it means the cardiac output. The cardiac output per 1 minute is 5 liters, and these 5 liters should be encouraged by oxygen, about 12 millimole of oxygen. So in this case, we need high surface area in order for this big amount of oxygen to deliver to our body. This surface area should be equal to about 70 square meters, which about the area of tennis courts, ساحة ملعب التنس. In order to increase these, we have alveoli. Alveoli, there are about 300 million alveoli in our bodies, and these increase the surface area of the lungs, which is inside our chest, small area, but the presence of alveoli give these alveoli, it will increase to the surface area of the our lungs, and this increasing in the surface area will lead to increasing in the diffusing capacity of the lungs. So from this we can conclude lungs, in order to do its proper function, should get enough amount of air, which called ventilations, and should be supplied by enough amount of blood, which called perfusion. Airways, it is a collection of a tube, usually used for delivering of air from atmosphere to the gas exchanging units, which is alveoli in the lungs. These airways usually divided to the upper airways and lower airways, and I think in the lecture of anatomy you take these information, and I will not going to repeat it. You see these bronchioles and these trees. It's very interesting pictures about the dividing bronchial trees, which act as conducting airways for delivering of oxygen to the lung tissues. At these, at the same time, you will see there are blood supply. These are pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery here, if you see it contain deoxygenated blood, the bluish discolored here. And these start to divided to more branches and more branches equal to the divisions of the trachea and bronchioles. At the ends would lead to the levels of capillaries. These are capillaries, small capillaries, pulmonary capillaries, surrounding the wall of the alveoli. And through this alveolus, start the process of exchanging of gases and start the oxygen changed from deoxygenated to the oxygenated, become red in color, and then going to the pulmonary veins. So in the lungs, pulmonary artery contain deoxygenated blood, while the pulmonary vein contain oxygenated blood. This is the reverse in the systemic circulations. Okay. If we talk about the pulmonary circulations have different criteria than systemic circulations. It is low resistance, low pressure, receive entire cardiac output, form practically no tissue fluids. In the alveolar capillaries, you will get this in the cardiac modules. In the lungs, almost always our lungs is dry, contain an alveolar space, contain no fluid, only gas. Why? Because the hydrostatic pressures in the pulmonary capillaries is lower than the oncotic pressures in the pulmonary capillaries. So the net results, the diverting force will divert the blood, the tissue from the fluid from the alveolar space to the fluid, to the intravascular compartments of the capillary and the pulmonary interstitial fluids. So on this space, almost always you will see the alveolus is dry of fluid. Only there are air in order to just allow the process of diffusions and exchanges to done properly. As we as I talked before, the ventilations, which is mean the air which coming from the environment of the atmosphere, and this the volume of air, which is determined by the tidal volume in each breath, should be correlated and matched to the volume of blood ejecting from the heart. So tidal volume should be correlated with the stroke volume of the heart, meaning blood which coming to the lungs. Correlations of blood coming from the lung, which called perfusion, and volume of air coming from the environment, which called ventilation. These are called ventilation perfusion matching. In order to our lungs to do its lung properly, should have matched or correlated ventilations and perfusion in order to for process of exchange done properly. As example, if I in resting conditions, I need a little amount of oxygen and I need little amount of cardiac output, the cardiac blood. But when I exercise, what will lead? Exercise will lead to increase the ventilations by increasing the number and depth of tidal volume. At the same time, the cardiac output will be increased by increasing stroke volume and heart rate. So in the process of exercise, both ventilations and perfusion will be increased. If one of these parameters is not going well because of disease process, the patients will go disorders in the process of ventilation or perfusion or oxygenation of the bodies and will develop symptoms. That is what I mean by ventilation and perfusion. And okay, my lecture is finished now. You see, in your small group sessions, there are titles stated that for self-studies. This part of self-studies, it means you have to do it by yourself after you understand the key elements of the process of physiology and anatomy. You can go home and read these informations which present to you by self-study. But as a whole, we have 15 minutes now. If any one of you had any questions about the lecture or the self-study sections in the workbook, I am ready to answer. So I am ready now just to receive your questions. No questions? You can use your mic to ask me. علي علي تسمعني؟
نعم سمعت
تسمعني؟
دكتور.
اكو المجموعة مال الطلاب اكو عندهم اي سؤال؟
دكتور بالتعليقات اعتقد اكو سؤال قايل لك.
خلي يستخدمون المايك، خلي يستخدمون المايك حتى يعني يكون نقاش مباشر بيناتنا.
بعد هاي تبقى من طلاب يا ريت يفتحون المايك حتى يسالون الدكتور، يعني تعليقات صعبه. دكتور الظاهر ما حد عنده سؤال.
ما حد عنده سؤال، بس تعليقات. ما التعليقات ما اقدر استجيب لها بسرعه، بدها تطلع وتختفي عندي، لانه المفروض اني اصير الادمن مال
لا تبقى موجوده
البرزنتيشن.
عليه تبقى.
خل اشوفها. ما اعرف، اكو طالبه اسمها ايمان نبيل تقول لي دكتور ممكن تعيد السلايد 13 المحاضره، انا وخرتها ممكن اعيدها، بس شنو سؤالها خليني افتهم، يعني حول اي موضوع ايمان اللي تسال. تقول دكتور ارقام الذوبانيه حفظ، ما اعرف شنو ايش تقصد، فممكن هي تفتح يعني مايك وتحكي وياي. Okay, thank you. I will leave. I hope you got interest and benefit from this lecture.
العفو دكتور، مشكورين، الله يحفظك.
يا هلا بيك، هلا، مع السلامة.